Welcome to the Earth Your Wow podcast, brought to you by Reuserbox, providing a better way to buy cardboard boxes. We're your hosts, Jack and Ellie.
This is the podcast where we talk to industry experts and change makers to try to answer the question, how do we make our businesses better for people and the planet? Today we're talking to Lucy Jeffrey, founder of Bearkind. It was Lucy's love of animals and her desire to help the world that led her to create her planet-saving socks. Each pair of socks is made from bamboo and features a cute animal design. With each sale, 10% of the profits goes to protect the animal featured on the socks. Bearkind is also B Corp certified and carbon neutral. Welcome to the podcast, Lucy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Hi, Lucy. We were really keen to maybe start by hearing like the story because we understand that when the world's a funny place, and sometimes when you're younger, you don't end up doing anything like what you thought you'd do for a career.
Yes.
So we're an example. We sell used cardboard boxes. Didn't think that was ever going to happen. So I've just really trying to work out like how did you. What did you think you were going to do when you're younger, and how did you end up selling socks that are saving animals? How did that happen?
I love that question because my path is very higgledy-piggledy. So when I was at school, I went to study biology at university, and I remember writing in my personal statement that I was going to cure cancer. That was my lofty goal that I was going after from school. And yeah, now I sell socks. It's not gone quite to plan, but to be fair, I went to university, had a great time, decided biology wasn't for me as from a career point of view, because a lot of the time you're going into teaching or research, and I didn't really fancy either of those at the time. I ended up working for a bank, so I kind of was a bit of a corporate sellout and did the kind of grad scheme out of university route because I just had no idea what else to do. So I got a good job. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. But it also didn't light any fires underneath me at all, really. But it was a good starting point for me, considering that was, straight out of university. So whilst I was at HSBC on the graduate program, I started a so-called side hustle, I guess, which was Bearkind, which wasn't socks at the time. I actually started with reusable straws. So I guess similar to you guys, I had that ethos of, wanting to do something a bit better with the world we're in. And at the time, there was a lot of focus on anti-single-use plastics. I met a friend who pulled a straw out of her bag, at a bar, and I was like, what are you doing? She was like, yeah, I've brought my own straw with me. And that's the first time I'd seen it anywhere, not even on social media. And I saw it and thought, that's a great idea. It's a bit boring. I reckon we can do something more fun with that. So I went down that route and started with lots of different colors and things like that. That was the first product. I then went on to recycled tote bags, t-shirts. I was just experimenting. And the socks actually came off the back of that because I was using turtles in all of my marketing because of the kind of anti-single-use plastic, anti-straws. There was a turtle with a straw stuck up his nose. That video is going viral. So I wanted to give back to the turtles because I was using them in all of my marketing. And I was like, I feel like they're a part of the business. So I started with 10% donated to the Turtle Foundation. So they were my very first charity. But there were no turtles on the straws. So I was like, you know what? I'll do a limited edition run of a product that has turtles on it. And that happened to be socks. So it wasn't even really, I didn't think it would go any further than that. I just thought, oh, so this is fun. I was just going with the flow, seeing where it would take me. But that product landed really well. People liked it and then were asking me for other animals. So then I went down the route of bees, penguins, leopards. So I had a range of 5. That was my first range. And that was the range that actually in 2020, at the end of the year, I actually quit my job to pursue actually running the company full time. So I only had 5 designs, but we just had one hell of a year. So I was like, you know what, anything can happen. So I'm just going to quit and see where this takes me. And that was, 4 years ago now. And I've got a small team. My husband works with me on the business. My sister's in the business as well. We've got a range of up to 100 different designs now throughout the year. There's a lot more comes out over Christmas. And yeah, it's just the straws are long gone. But that was just kind of a pivot for me. Like I knew they weren't gonna be a long-term product. They were definitely a phase, I think. You don't really see them about much more. The good news is there's much less single-use plastic from a straw point of view out there, but the metal straws, I was like, I'm not going to be able to build a business on this. But the socks we have done. And yeah, that's where we are now. So very, very higgledy-piggledy route, went from like science to finance to where I am now.
To socks.
Well,
Yeah.
everyone loves a jazzy pair of socks, though, don't they? They're like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a sign that I'm getting old, but like, I just love getting socks for like Christmas or something now. So
They're the
Exactly.
best.
And
They're
that's
the
what we
best
rely
presents.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was always the same. And we're so seasonal as well. Like 70% of our revenue comes in like September to December, which brings its challenges like from a cash flow point of view, but we're just naturally a very seasonal business as quite a few retail businesses tend to be. So yeah, people love socks at Christmas.
There was one bit of that story I thought was quite interesting. As you were saying, like you didn't know what to do when you left uni, I guess, and you ended up working for a bank. Um, your words were corporate sellout, but I just thought, maybe there might be someone listening that is also, maybe they've got a job. It might be a great job, but maybe a bit like you, they're kind of thinking, is this what I want to do? Or, maybe they got that kind of like, I want a bit of purpose in my life. I just wondered, like, if there's anyone listening that's maybe in that scenario that you were in, like
Mhm.
if you could give one piece of advice to them, what would that one piece of advice be?
It's quite a dangerous position to be in because a lot of the time you're okay, like the job is good, like so unless you're being pushed out, and I wasn't. I loved my bosses, I loved my colleagues. I'm still really good friends with some of my colleagues. Like we got married last year and a bunch of them came to the wedding, like, and I haven't worked with them in like 4 years. So it's, yeah, a dangerous position to be in because you're not gonna maybe take the risk as much as if you hated your job and really, really wanted to leave. Um, I would just say that life is too short. If you're in the position where you could start something and start exploring what that next thing is, doesn't necessarily have to be starting a company. Try and do both for a bit. Like, unless you're in the position where you can just quit and have nothing lined up and then explore, great. But I think a lot of people, as I was, would not be in the position to just quit and not have anything lined up. I'd been running the company for a couple of years, maybe 2.5 years. Not that it was in a position to pay me a salary yet, but I'd had that traction. I had products. I kind of had something to bank on. And the reason I quit was because we had a really good season during that kind of COVID Christmas because everyone pushed their buying to online. So it was like a calculated risk. So my piece of advice would be to explore stuff whilst you're in that position. And if you're not hating your job, it's a good position to be in because you can enjoy the job, but also explore like what could be next. And if you're in the position where you're like really hating it, oh yeah, life's way too short. Just try and jump into something else because you can end up being stuck in something that makes you miserable.
That's good advice. I always something I really hear a lot with like my friends is so many people I know that are kind of like they're in a job and they don't like it and they're always like, or it's like fine, but it's maybe not fulfilling. And they're always kind of like, well, I'm just thinking like maybe in like 2 or 3 years, I'll stay here for 2 or 3 years. And then in 3 years, I've got this other thing I want to do. And then I think if you're not careful, you like end up getting a house on a mortgage and a car on finance, and
Right?
then you're
You
like, you're
get
trapped.
trapped.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have
Capitalism has got
kids.
you.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think, I'd have been 26 when I quit. So really at the stage of like, okay, I have an opportunity here to go and do this. Like I've got to this point now, I'm 30, we're looking at having a family. It becomes a very, very different decision. And same for my husband, right? He quit, he was at HSBC as well. And he was on like a pipeline to CEO program. So that was a huge decision for him to leave. Like he was basically supporting both of us with that job. Um, and then he made the decision 2 years ago now to quit and join me, which was almost a bigger decision for him than for me because I was just a grad. I was kind of like, well, I've done this for a few years. I could easily go back, but he'd kind of done like 10 years in the corporate world, so it was a much bigger jump. So if there's people out there that have they've been in that corporate world for even longer and think, wow, like this would be a big move for me. It can be done, but I'd just say like think about what you're jumping to. And if you're thinking it, as you said, this kind of, oh, maybe I'll do that in 2 or 3 years, start that thing now. Just have a play. Like you don't need to have a fully fledged business before you jump. Like set up a social media account, write a blog, like whatever that might be. Just start playing around with it, and then you'll get an idea, because you might hate it and then regret jumping.
Yeah, and I think I also think it's like if it's a case of like not if but when, then why would you prolong that? And like you said, I think the older you get, the more likely you are. Like the harder it is to leave.
Absolutely, yeah. Unless you get pushed out,
Yeah.
like if you end up like not liking your boss, or the business restructures or something like that. But I was pulled rather than pushed, which it feels a better position to be in. But it's also then harder to leave, because you think, wow, this is a really good, comfortable salary. Like I could have just stayed at the bank forever and been okay. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I look back on that and think, man, like, shutting down your laptop for the weekend or to go on holiday, you don't think about it at all. But with a business, you do. You don't really get a holiday. That's not really a thing. And obviously the consistent salary is nice as well. But I wouldn't change it. This has been very fulfilling, and like, I've learned so much in running a business.
Nice. So tell us a bit more about the socks. So they're made from bamboo. How does that work? Because I've bought not some of your socks actually, but I have bought I'm going to buy some. But I bought bamboo socks before. And how do you make socks using bamboo? Can you tell us about? And how are they better than kind of traditional socks?
Yeah, so bamboo is like so good for your feet. It's why they've become like massive in kind of socks, underwear, like sleepwear, things like that, because the material that you're using is actually really good for being against your skin, because it's super breathable, it's sweat wicking. So we've done a lot of work with the Royal College of Podiatry. We're actually stocked in a lot of podiatrists' clinics as well, because they actually recommend bamboo socks for like being a much better environment for your feet. So that's why it's become such a thing. The bamboo itself, it's a really good like natural resource, because it's the fastest growing plant, either plant or grass. It's technically a grass, that's why I think it's the fastest growing plant in the world. So it's like super quick to replenish, and they don't have to rip it out from the root. They just cut it and it goes again. And it doesn't need like pesticides or anything inorganic to grow, and it doesn't need much water. So it's like kind of virile, it just goes and goes. And so yeah, that process is they'll kind of like break it down into like a pulp, and then that's brought back around and like spun basically into like massive reels of fiber, which then goes into the product. So exactly the same as for bamboo clothing, and things like that as well. So it's become a massive thing on the market in the kind of loungewear and underwear sector. So that's why you'll see it everywhere.
Nice. Yeah, it's pretty versatile, isn't it? Because you get like toilet paper made from
We
bamboo
have
now, don't
bamboo
you?
Oh
toilet
yeah.
paper, yeah.
But I guess paper as well. Yeah, crazy. So do you manufacture? I was just looking on your website earlier, and what was your decision with the manufacturing process?
In terms of like where we get our supplies from.
Yeah. So how do you kind of ensure like the ethics of that and like transparency in the process?
Yeah, so we started with like back in the day when I very first started, I started with Turkey as my main manufacturer. And we worked with that manufacturer for like a good few years before adding more manufacturers on. So I think actually interesting piece of advice is I think we stayed too long with just one manufacturer. I think it's very, very wise to split manufacturing, reduce your risk geographically as well, having different countries, because you never know what's going to happen. Some of these countries can have like unstable economies. And also from an exporting point of view, there's all kinds of stuff has happened over the last few years with like the Suez Canal, and then all the wars that are going on just completely changes the supply chain, the costs of things being shipped as well. So we hung on too long with just one manufacturer. But yeah, so in terms of vetting them, It's just a certificate process, really. So it's actually speaking to that manufacturer and getting their like certificates. So there's SEDEX and BSCI are the two main ones that we look for, and then reading through those documents. When were they last audited? You can get external audits as well, so you can kind of send people that you have chosen to go in and check these factories out. And it's actually not as hard as you'd think to find, especially socks, because there are a lot of big sock manufacturers. So our two main hubs are China and Turkey, and they are the two biggest countries for sock manufacturing, I'd say, especially China. And we've added on India, and we're also looking at other countries as well. So I do think that would be my one piece of advice, is to consider multiple manufacturers where you can. It's not always possible. We were quite small to start with, so even finding one that would work with us and get the MOQs, try and push them down, was tough. But now we've grown and got bigger, we kind of have more flexibility with our manufacturing. And also it gives you more power with pricing as well. So if you've kind of got a few manufacturers to kind of play off one another and understand the pricing, that makes it more affordable as well, because you've actually got bargaining and negotiating power as well.
I mean, as a small business, is it possible to like manufacture in the UK? Is there a reason you've had to kind of go
We did look at
outside?
it. We've met a manufacturer that's in the UK. They're down south. Their manufacturing cost is more than our wholesale cost to our retailers. It's just it's not possible for us. Like possibly at scale. The reason I know this manufacturer, they have their own sock brand, so they're able to manufacture in the UK because they own all the equipment. They've kind of had that investment. I think their past is the founder inherited her family's sock equipment out in Asia and then imported it or something like that. So bit of a different scenario, I'd say, but most of the sock manufacturing has moved out of the UK now, because of the cost. So there used to be a lot up in Leicester, and you'll actually find there's quite a few like sock manufacturers based in the UK. None of their manufacturing is actually in the UK. They all outsource. So they're like a UK-based partner. So you'd speak to like a UK company, but they outsource to Turkey and China. So it's depending on the product, it can be possible, but the machines required for sock manufacturing are really, really expensive. So the setups that are already out there in China and Turkey, these huge factories, that's why they can afford to offer the prices that we're getting. And the UK, unfortunately, was just not competitive enough for us.
I suppose as well, like if you're making socks out of bamboo, I'm guessing the bamboo's grown in
That was the
like
other thing.
Asia.
Yeah.
So
It's coming over anyway. And actually, when I first started looking, I did want to do UK manufacturing, but also none of them were offering bamboo as a fiber. So yeah, it's coming. Most of the world's bamboo is coming from China already. So you might as well manufacture there too.
yeah, I suppose it's lower impact. And this SEDEX certification or
Yeah.
accreditation you talked about, I have heard of that, but like, is that is that like a social thing? Is that like trying to like look at the factories and making sure that it's, because I think the thing that I think most people will think is if something's being made in China, I think like the thing that you'll think is like, okay, how ethical is the supply chain, or do you know
Yeah,
what I mean? So
exactly. Yeah.
it must be really hard for you to deal with that problem being an ethical business, that's really about impact. So how did you, how does the SEDEX help with that, and
Yeah.
how do you make that not a problem with your customers, I guess?
I think it's the education piece. One brand that I follow, like a sustainable gym wear brand, I think says it the best, where they say you can have ethical manufacturing in Asia and you can have unethical manufacturing in the UK. Like, just I think it's a preconception that if it's in China, it's going to be bad, but that's not the case anymore. You need to be the one in charge of vetting a supply chain. So yes, there's manufacturing in the UK, but there was that whole scandal with Boohoo or one of those similar companies where they weren't paying a living wage to or even minimum wage to their employees. So the vetting is the most important bit. And yeah, so the SEDEX one, the BSCI, that's all auditing from like the social standards point of view. So working conditions, age of workforce, overtime hours, pay, just anything to do with the kind of working environment and the conditions for those workers. But then there are other certificates you can go after depending what you need at that moment. So there's like FSC, so that's That's the Forestry Commission one. So that's for like sustainably supplied like paper goods. So, the forests being used, for example, can be sustainably sourced. Okay, I don't actually know how to pronounce it, but OKO Tex. It's like OEKO Tex. They have a bunch of certificates that's to do with. So one of them we have a certificate for that guarantees that there's no toxic chemicals left in the final product. And you should see that in most like apparel brands, kids wear brands, just anything to say that it's safe to wear. So if there's been dye in the process, you want to know that that dye is not going to harm your skin. So that's one of their certificates, but they have another one that's like step into green, I think, and our factories have this. And that's kind of more like a processes in the factory, and what are they kind of from an environmental point of view as well. But then you could go down the route of there's like organic cotton certificates, if you use leather products, there's one specifically for those. Wool, there's a host of them depending on like what your product is. And I'm sure there then would be loads of certificates and safety things for if you did toys, food, beauty. There'd be so many in that industry as well, way more, because they're going to have much more stringent regulations. So it's really about knowing what's relevant to your product. There's like heaps of information on these certificates online. And actually most of the manufacturers expect to be asked for it and just have a bank of certificates ready to go. If they are weird about it or say, oh no, we don't need that, or we don't want to, because the manufacturers have to pay for these certifications, by the way. So if they're not, and if they don't have them, instant red flag. Like the most manufacturers seem to have them. So if they don't have them, there's something going wrong there.
We did have we had a guy from Bamboo Bobby on the podcast, so they're like a bamboo toilet roll, and he was saying he obviously like he was saying they get the toilet roll made in China, and he was saying they looked at it in the UK, but obviously it was cheaper in China. But when they looked at the it was like a rating system or an accreditation, but when they looked at like the Chinese factory that he was working with, was actually higher rated than the UK factory.
Yeah.
And he said overtime in the UK one was really bad, was like as an example. So, it's not, I think you're right. It's not, the geographical location doesn't determine how ethical a supply chain is, but obviously, I guess there are just more less ethical ones in that part of the world. But
yeah, it's not a given just because it's in a Western country that they're going to have good working conditions. It's just a preconception that we have. But yeah, there are still bad things going on. We know this. The other thing is go and visit the factories. I think we're going to our China one this year. We went to Turkey the last couple of years, and it's actually great for your relationships with the factories because you can just negotiate pricing and understand them much better in person and just have those conversations. And our manufacturers come and visit us in London a couple of times as well. But then you're actually seeing the working conditions and seeing it in person, and there's nothing quite like that. So it took us a while to get. I think we should have visited sooner. That's another piece of advice. I think it helps your relationship with that factory if you can visit sooner, but not always. I was a tiny business before. I didn't even really know what I was doing. So it took me a while to get to the point where I was like, oh yeah, actually visiting makes sense now.
Yeah. I suppose as well, if you've got like if you're doing like a sample or trial thing, you can't necessarily afford to get a flight to China. Just
No, and they wouldn't be interested. That's the other thing. They wouldn't be interested. We needed to be a bit bigger for them to be like they want to keep our business. Whereas before, you do have to be careful with, we've had factories, another factory that we were working with, and then they took on a huge contract with some massive fashion brand, and so we got squeezed out. And it will happen. That happens a lot, and that's another reason to have multiple manufacturing partners.
Yeah. What do you find that there is much competition from the bigger brands, or how does it? I feel like that with the bigger brands, there seems to be this kind of air of greenwashing that people are a bit distrustful of them. Distrustful, sorry. Do you feel that that's easier as a smaller brand to kind of address?
Definitely easier to address.
Yeah.
I think people are quicker to trust us
Yeah.
as well because we're small. My face is everywhere on the website and stuff. Like it's almost like they know they're buying from that one person rather than some big faceless brand. What I'd say the sad thing is though, although it is the ones that shouting the loudest, you'll hear a lot about how people were hating on H&M's latest campaign, greenwashing, blah, blah, blah. It all comes down to where people are buying, and people are still buying millions of pounds worth of clothes from these companies. And it's only getting more poignant with the upsurgence of these like Shein and Temu and these big Chinese kind of contenders that are making it extremely difficult for us to compete in a market because we cannot compete on price.
It's
It's
just so
becoming
cheap,
really,
isn't
really
it?
difficult.
Well,
It is so cheap.
yeah, I mean, like Timu's subsidized by the Chinese government, so like they're paid to run at a loss, so that they can develop a marketplace globally, I guess, like in the West, for example. So
It's really difficult. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, how can you compete with someone that's like one of the wealthiest governments in the world is paying them to operate at a loss?
Yeah. And you can't blame the consumer either. Like, I guess they're seeing all these like really, really cheap goods. And, the economy in the UK is really tough right now. It's
Yeah.
really hard on people. So why would they come to us? People do still come to us. I think, basically we're putting the branding and the ethics and the messaging behind it. So people like what we're doing, but it will come down to what people can afford.
Yeah.
And it's becoming much, much harder. We were actually at a trade show recently, and one of the other brands there was saying she was speaking to a retailer who was like looking at her products and stuff. And the retailer, so this person has their own shop, buys directly off Temu, like she'll buy like 50 units off Temu and sell in her shop. So I'm like, so they're not even going to wholesale anymore. They are literally cutting out everyone in the middle and just going direct. But like, I mean, she didn't even need to buy 50 units. You could buy like 5 units and get it shipped for cheaper. So it's pretty rough out there right now, to be honest, for product businesses, I think, and then the mindset of the consumer is, oh, well, I can just get this cheaper on Temu. And the problem with those Chinese platforms is they're big copycats as well. So
Yeah.
they're ripping off a lot of brands. I don't think we're super rip-offable. You could probably copy our designs, but I don't think they would ever do the oh, sorry, it's bins outside.
Well, I don't think they'd ever give their profits away to charity.
No.
I
No,
don't think.
exactly. Yeah. So that bit is hard to copy. And like,
Yeah.
people do still want to support smaller brands and these independent brands with stories. So you can't copy me and you can't copy my like messaging behind the brand. But it is still very difficult to compete. Yeah, it was because before we were competing with, I guess, like, supermarkets, M&S, like any of those brands that sell like a lot of socks. Plus Happy Socks is the biggest sock company in the world, and more kind of similar to, although they don't have the charity angle, they've got the kind of funky design angle. But they were actually, Happy Socks is more expensive than us. But now we're competing directly with China, basically. And it's pretty tough. So we'll have to ride that wave and just see where it goes, and rely on the consumers that, one, have the disposable income to kind of go for our level of product, and two, want to shop in a more meaningful way.
Yeah. Well, I know there's people have this like mentality about price in business, especially in places like the UK, where everything's cheap and on sale and Poundland and all this kind of stuff. But ultimately, there's always those brands that seem to sidestep that. Like people like Patagonia, for example, who are really quite expensive. but I think it's that whole thing of like people can buy on price, but people will also buy why you do what you do, as opposed to how much it costs. And it looks like you guys do a good job of that. Like it really looks like there's a really important reason why you're selling socks, and I think that obviously resonates with your customers.
Which actually brings me on to my next
Oh,
question.
that for a
Great
segue.
segue.
Can you tell us about your charity donation pledge, and about the charities you donate to? Because I think there's a lot, isn't there?
There is a lot, yeah. And we've done that in a specific way. So there are a lot of ways you can donate to charity as a company. You know, there's things like 1% for the planet. There's various programs that are set up now, which are all amazing. I have done it the more difficult way, but for a reason. So I donate 10% of the profits to the animal on the sock. So every single design will be linked to a charity that helps that specific animal. So we've got Bumblebees, is Bumblebee Conservation Trust. I mentioned the Turtle Foundation. We might have ranges that donate to one charity. So I've got Rainforest Trust UK as a big charity of ours, and we've got maybe 7 or 8 designs that fit into that category because we're saving their environment and their habitat. So we've got between 35 and 40 different charities now. It's become a bit of a beast to manage. I love it because it's very specific. To those animals. So, you know, if you've got a koala sock, it's an Australian charity that's supporting like conservation in Australia. Same with like our wallaby socks and things like that. So I really like that we do that. I feel like it's super meaningful, and it's, you know, the customers that like a koala know that they're supporting a koala. From an admin point of view, it does make things much harder. But again, it's another thing that's very difficult to copy because it's so much work.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's really meaningful, and it shows it's very thoughtful. You know, you can I guess I think it's a great gift idea, isn't it? You know someone
Yeah.
in your life who loves bumblebees, buy them the bumblebee socks and donate to charity. I think it's
I
a
like
great
bees.
idea.
Yeah. Gonna buy me some socks.
Yes, I'll get you some.
Yeah, it's great. You know, it's great for our messaging. Like, so the marketing around it, it makes it so much easier. So every year, and we're coming up to that point of year, we release our charity impact report. So that totals up all the donations from the previous year. We go to the charity, we verify the donation, we ask them what that donation actually does in kind of like on the ground work, because a monetary donation actually doesn't really mean much in a customer's head. Like, so we're like, you know, we donate £1,000 to this charity. They're like, great, but I don't know what that actually means. So we convert it into actual things that happen on the ground. So like acres of rainforest protected. The bumblebee one's nice because that is number of rugby pitches worth of wildflower seed planted. And so that's our like favorite time of year because it's like all the work we did the previous year. This is what we've actually done. And then it just gets more and more every year and kind of accumulates. And it's really nice to see. Yeah, so it's from that point of view, it's really easy like marketing as well because it's such a powerful message to be like, yeah, our elephant socks, I think the year before donated enough to buy like a GPS tracking unit for an elephant that gets released. And like that is so tangible. Like you can have a picture of the actual elephant and see, you know, and it's tracking and stuff. So it's super tangible and it's super easy for our customers to understand.
Do you ever get much like criticism for it? Because I think what you're doing is very authentic, and I think it's a great thing. But you know, I also know that as a business, when you try and like donate profits to charity or say we're supporting this charity, you always get those people.
Oh yeah.
Don't know where they are. I don't know where they come from, but you always get those people on like social media or on like the YouTube comment sections, and they're like, actually,
Yeah.
this is really bad because blah 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 blah. So like, how do you? Is that a problem that you get, or are people just very trusting of it, or what's your,
It's always the keyboard warriors. Yeah,
yeah,
we do have it. More often than not, people are kind of trusting. Everything all our donations we have verified with the charities. I have receipts for every single donation ever made, like if we're ever audited for any reason. And I'm super surprised not one single person has asked to ever see them. They just take our words that we actually donate. What they're more like, yeah, I think most of the time, I sometimes say like, if we were a company that just sold socks and didn't donate to charity, I think we'd get less flack.
yeah,
Because yeah, you do, and it's usually the people that don't know us. So it's on our like Facebook ads and things like that. So we've just appeared in their feeds. They have no idea who we are. They have no idea how big we are. And they're like, oh, well, it's only 10%, if you donated 100%. And I'm like, I physically can't afford to donate 100%. I don't think you understand how business works. My favorite ever comment was, well, if you're donating 10%, how much are your top CEOs being paid? And I was like, not a living wage, honestly. Like, do you
That's
understand what it's like
hilarious.
being a business owner? But
Yeah.
that just goes to show they have no idea who we are when they're commenting. But our people, our customers who know who we are very supportive. And actually, we don't really need to say much. Usually we can kind of say, oh, actually, here's our charity impact report. Here's about the business, and people will back down instantly. And we have to be very nice about it. Sometimes I want to leave a sarcastic comment or something, but I can't. That's not on brand. But our customers will have a go at them for us. They'll come in and be like,
Oh,
well, how
that's
dare you?
nice.
How much did you donate to charity last year? Better than buying
No.
from
War.
Primark, all of
Nice.
this. So we just like let it happen.
That's good. So
What was that?
you were in a meeting once, weren't you, with some, was it a potential supplier, and they said, so we're 1% for the planet accredited, and they said, well, it's only 1%. You know,
Oh, right, yeah.
that's not much, is it? And
it's like,
1% of
you can't
turnover
win.
is actually
Yeah.
more than you think.
It's hard. It is really hard. Like, I don't think people realize how
I
10%
actually,
doesn't sound much, but it's
this
really hard to make this model work.
this particular company I was with, after the meeting, I was quite pissed off because like it was like 15% or 20% of our profit, because it's 1% of our turnover that we invest into like reforestation. And this guy was basically like, I don't think what you're doing is very good because it's only a small amount of money that you're donating in relation to all the money that you make. And then I looked up, because this company had their own like charity thing.
And this is a big corporate company.
It's a big corporate company with the yellow trucks. And and I looked up and I realized that they made like £10 billion profit or something. And I realized they did like some charity thing, and it was like 0.0000000000001% of their profit, let alone their turnover.
You think like if you could just like go back in time and be like, actually, so this is how much you've given to charity.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're not trying to convert everyone to doing what you do, are you? I think ultimately it just meant, oh, I'm disqualifying you from working with us then. But
People are very skeptical. But this is what I'm saying. If you didn't donate anything, I actually don't think they'd even question it. Like they just wouldn't bring that up. But because you're like, oh, you almost pin your hat on that, and then they want to tear you down, and you're like, I feel like you're going after the wrong people here.
But then I think then for every one of those types of people, whatever they are, but for every one of them, there's probably like 100. Of your customers that actually they buy why you do what you do, and they're really interested and they support you. So
the skeptics are smaller, but they just shout louder.
Mm-hmm. What was that email you got earlier?
We did have an email earlier calling what we did as some kind of woke BS, and I did take it quite personally.
This is from a customer. I was thinking, why did you buy from us
then? It did, yeah. Because we send out reuse impact reports to show what the benefit of their order had. Sorry, let me start again. To show the impact of them reusing cardboard boxes, how much energy and water, etc. they've saved. And they just weren't really happy with it. They didn't care. They obviously just wanted their cardboard boxes and decided to tell us that. So
honestly, it's the keyboard warriors. We had scenario. So we've only ever done animal socks, but once we strayed away from this and haven't since. But we, when the war broke out in Ukraine, I wanted to do a project to support them because it felt like the right thing to do. So we manufactured some socks in Ukraine as well. So we're supporting their like local economy. And they were like sports socks with like little Ukraine hearts on them. And we donated 100% of the profits to the Ukraine like war efforts. And people hated it. Like we sold them and we donated the money and everything, but my God, like the negativity we got on social media from it was so bad. We had to take our ads down because it's political. And I was like, right, we're just going to stick with animals because that's safe. People can't argue with that. I mean, they'll try, but like the political angle was just not good. So we sold the socks and then that was it. But we did actually because we sold them on wholesale as well, because a lot of our retailers liked it and wanted to be doing something as well. So we sold them on wholesale and we got an email back from a business email address. So I know exactly who they are and their business. And they told us that was like selling Nazi propaganda or something. And I was like, oh my God, like, I cannot believe you just said that to me in black and white. Like I could post this anywhere about your business. You're accusing me of being a Nazi for anyway, like so it just goes to show like you can't please everyone. You can try and do the right thing. And yes, I did take that very personally because I was like, I'm just trying to do something good here. So you kind of have to like brush it off a bit sometimes, I think, and realize that there'll always be haters out there, and it's maybe they're just having a really bad day.
Yeah, well, I think the thing for anyone listening is it's like you don't need to convert everybody into doing what you're doing. It's like a huge world. Even if you want to like really do something unbelievable with the impact of your business, like you don't need everybody. So your job's not to fight with people that don't believe what you do. It's to rally up the people that do.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Okay. What's the next question, Amber?
We got a bit distracted there, didn't we?
Yeah. What trends have you noticed in ethical consumerism, and where do you see it heading in the next 5 years? Sorry, 5 to 10 years.
See, I'm personally quite worried about this at the moment. I feel like we were making good strides, and it does feel like a few steps backward, one step forward type thing at the moment. As aforementioned discussion about Shein and all of these companies. I think I worry that it's because in the UK at the moment everyone's really struggling. We're seeing it from a business point of view. The economy is quite bad at the moment. So I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer. I think there's still so much good going on. But when it's tough and when it's hard for a business or an individual, they're going to go back to their like basics, and sustainability still becomes a bit of like a added extra that they're going to forget about when times are tough. But that being said, there's still lots of brands emerging, and brands that are trying to do better. So there's still a lot of it happening. I just think we have a long way to go. And that, you'd hope that these solutions, the kind of more sustainable, ethical solutions, and the companies offering those services do also become more affordable. Because you can try and do all the right things. Like we've gone carbon neutral over the last couple of years. And it is quite an expensive option to do, but like I wanted to do that, so I've pushed for that. But the cheaper and easier option would be to not do that. So like there's going to be a lot of companies that would be like, we need to cut costs, and I'm afraid that a lot of the time sustainability seems to fall by the wayside unless you've got particularly like founders or leaders in the business that are very passionate about it and know like will push for it. However, there's also a lot of regulations coming in, especially across the EU, that are like forcing these businesses. Massive fines will start coming out, and already are coming out. So I think it has to be regulation led. Otherwise, companies will just do whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean, there's legislation coming in and being talked about that I think is very good. Obviously, yeah, I think you've got a lot of countries and a lot of people that are effectively getting poorer, and I think that does seem to have a big impact. Like you said, it does seem to be this thing where like sustainability is a nice to have for a business, or it's a bolt on. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's so many brands like you guys that are saying we don't care, we want to make this work because this is important to us. And I think ultimately that's the thing that's infectious.
And
I think
also, you look at the B Corp movement.
Yeah.
So Bearkind,
which is growing,
is a B Corp as well. And that's kind of embedded into a lot of B Corps, isn't it?
We were at an event and they were saying that there's about 1 million businesses going through the certification process at the moment worldwide.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
that's
Which
huge,
is just,
isn't it?
I don't know how many businesses there are worldwide, but there can't be that many more than that. I mean,
and it's got
that's a
harder.
lot.
The process to get certified has become harder now,
Yeah.
so they won't just let anyone through. So yeah, I think, and actually consumers are asking for it, and it is like especially at trade shows as well, which is that's the retail consumer, like the retailers. We have our little B Corp plaque up, and it really helps with the kind of conversations because they start talking to us about supply chains and stuff. They want to know that, yeah, we've done our vetting and we've got the right ethics and certificates and things like that. But the B Corp, just having that logo there makes those conversations so much easier. They're like, oh, yeah, B Corp, great. Where do we sign?
You mentioned as well, with you being carbon neutral. So for anyone listening that doesn't understand what that means, can you just explain that and explain why? I think you just touched on it, but why that was important for you to do?
Yeah, so it's looking at your carbon emissions over the course of usually a year, but you can kind of do it over a longer period of time. But we recertify every year. So it's looking at your carbon emissions across your whole kind of supply chain and what you do as a business. So for us, it's how many socks we're selling and where we're getting them from, but also what we're doing as a business. So if you had, we work from home, so actually our carbon emissions are pretty low from that point of view. Like we don't have a commute to the office or anything like that. So as a much smaller business is actually much easier to kind of navigate, but you're calculating your carbon emissions over a set period of time. So that year across all of these different functions, working out what your emissions are. And then obviously the goal is to physically reduce those emissions. And where not physically possible to reduce those emissions, you are offsetting. So you're buying kind of certified, accredited carbon offsets that will then that basically you're buying a credit in a particular project that is helping to reduce carbon physically from the atmosphere. So it might be a tree planting project, mangrove, it might be something else, like it might be like a community project where it might be something more scientific than that, but like there's so many different projects that you can go after. And actually, if you're looking into it, the main thing I got taught in the process is make sure it's like a proper certified project, because there's a lot of carbon offsetting options out there, and they might not necessarily be the right ones to support. So I think the gold standard carbon offsets program is the kind of main one to go after, and you can kind of it's not super expensive. It's something like you can pay like £20 for like to offset like a ton of carbon emissions, which is quite a lot. So it might not cost you too much over the year, depending how big you are. But yeah, it's called Gold Standard. So that's the kind of main one to look at. That's where you're kind of guaranteeing that your money is actually going to the right project. I think there's so many offsetting programs out there that a lot of the time they're kind of siphoning off funds, and some of it goes to the project. So that's just something to watch out for.
And I guess the really important thing is that you want to start with reducing once you've measured, start with reducing your footprint. I know that's kind of tricky when you're so small, but if you're a very small business, but I think there is criticism, isn't there, that you don't just want to offset your emissions, you also want to reduce
you can't
where
just
you
do
can.
whatever you want and then offset because it's cheap. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
kind of diminish responsibility in that angle. So
But
it's
then-
knowing where you are
yeah.
and reporting it as well. It's about
Yeah.
transparency with your customers.
Yeah. But there's obviously also a part that you usually can't reduce because you still have to operate as a business. So I think, as I understand it, that's the argument for offsetting.
Question then. If you could collaborate with any organization or any individual or any animal to create a bear kind product or campaign, what would that be? Or who would that be?
Yeah, definitely David Attenborough. I think he's like the leading shining light for animals across the world, and has been for his entire career. I actually did send him socks. I've got a framed letter here next to me, like because he writes back. It's incredible.
He writes back.
He wrote back to
He
you.
writes back. Yeah, let me show you.
I was going to say, I bet he'd like some animal socks.
Yeah, that's his actual handwriting.
Wow.
Dear Lucy Jeffrey, thank you for sending me these socks. You are very kind to do so. Best wishes, David Attenborough.
Wow.
Let's send him a box.
Send him a flat pack cardboard box.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, is he going to do his next, presenting wearing the socks? So
imagine.
I don't know what to do with the box.
Put his socks in it, obviously. Wow. Well, that's kind of a collaboration.
Yeah, we'll take it. Yeah.
All right. So we have like a closing question we like to ask everyone, which is, and this might be from your perspective, or it might be like, hope versus what you think will actually happen. But we always say to people, like, where do you see the world in 10 years?
Did I write an answer for this when was this on the or was this an extra? I don't remember reading this question.
I'm not sure.
Where do
I can fact check.
Sometimes it's like where you would like to see the world. Some people answer both, depending depending on how people are feeling.
Okay, well, we'll just go from top of my head then. Okay, so where would I want to see the world? I just think that it just needs to be, and it will happen, but like way more innovation. I think it's really tough right now because you see forests burning down and people gluing themselves to the road in protest, and just the world is kind of like at odds with each other on like almost what to do about climate change. But there are people out there that are doing really awesome things. Like I guess going back to my roots, so I think science should be the answer a lot of the time. I think there's some really exciting projects going on out there. So I just think that innovation needs to happen. So, we need things like, imagine like roads that pull carbon out of the atmosphere, or like every time you drive your car, you're actually pulling stuff out of the atmosphere to then reuse instead of fuel, like whatever. Like just the possibilities that are out there. And we're pretty incredible as a human race when you think about it. The amount of innovation that has gone on in the kind of technology over the last like 50 years. And you argued that the focus there was kind of growth and money and like improving the human race and and good things like medicine and like all kinds of stuff. But if there is just that focus on sustainability as well and improving the world from a technology point of view in that aspect, I think we could go incredible places. And I think I want to hope that we can slow this temperature increase in the atmosphere, and you just got to hope that that will be done. And I'd love to work on something like that. I wish that's where like maybe I could have, rather than curing cancer, gone into like something more techie and sciencey behind sustainability. But actually, even when I was at school, which was like 12 years ago, there wasn't a big focus. So it's become a much more bigger focus, and we're going to have all these kids coming through school or university now, hopefully are going to be like the movers and shakers of the future in sustainability.
Nice.
Yeah.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, this is the thing. We're just clinging on to that hope. It's very easy to get skeptical, which I feel like I've come across a little bit in this podcast, because I do think it's tough out there right now, and sustainability does get sidelined a bit. So we've just got to keep talking about it and keep bringing it back and realizing how important it is.
Yeah, I think in recent podcasts we have talked about some difficult things, and we have all felt a bit like doom and gloom almost. But
yeah,
I think that just shows where we are at the moment. But I think, like you said, we just gotta keep going.
Yeah, and I think as well, like I think that if you have a company and you create it because you want to have a positive impact on animals or the environment or whatever, I think ultimately if you just make it a better solution than somebody else's business that doesn't, you're going to achieve your objective anyway. I always, I like that guy that said we were wokey bullshit to us. I mean, ultimately he probably just bought from us because we have a good product at a good price and a good service. So yeah, your answer was better. But yeah, okay, cool. Is that a wrap then?
Yeah. No, thanks.
That was fun.
Thank you. It's been lovely talking to you.
awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. We hope it was truly
Earth your while.
For more information, visit reuserbox.co.uk/Earth Your While.
And if you'd like to appear on the next series of Earth Your While, please email media@reuserbox.co.uk.